Hello, my name is Chef Philip, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a simple potato pierogi. We're going to start off with a dough and a potato filling. Let's get started. We're going to start with the potatoes so that we can let them cook for a little bit as we're getting our dough ready. We have basic yellow potato here. I have 4 medium ones. I'm going to peel them. While I'm peeling the potatoes, this is a great little family recipe that I'm doing. It's really simple and it's something that people love. It's, a comfort food in my family. I grew up, I'm Polish descent, and this is something that my great grandma used to do and everybody loved it. So once you have your potatoes peeled, ready to go, I'm going to take them and we're going to chop them in half. And then we're just going to do a couple little chunks out of them. And the reason why we are cutting the potato down is so that it cooks a little bit faster. I mean, if you have the time, you could peel the potato and just leave it whole and you wouldn't have any trouble with it whatsoever. But since I'm on a little bit of a time frame here, we're gonna cut them down to cook them just a little bit faster. All right, now that we have our potato all chopped up, we're gonna come over here. I have a pot of boiling water on the stove. I'm gonna season it with just a little bit of salt. And then I'm going to add our potatoes to the boiling water. And now while that's cooking right there, we're gonna start on our pierogi dough. So over here, I have 4 cups of flour and I have a KitchenAid mixer. I'm going to start off by adding all 4 cups of my flour right into the mixer. This could. I have 1 cup of water. I have 2 eggs. I have a 1/4 cup of sour cream. And then I have 2 tablespoons of softened butter. We're also going to add a pinch of salt, just for a little bit of flavor in that dough. And I'm going to raise this up right here. I'm going to start it on a low speed. And I'm just going to let this combine, go for a little bit, slowly increasing the speed as I go, and just let it form. Now as it starts to form, you might have to scrape the sides of the bowls down a little bit. So right here, we'll give it a little bit of a stop. I'll drop this down and I'll scrape the inside of those bowls, getting all the flour incorporated down into the dough. Now we're going to lift this back up. Start mixing again. I've always said, you're at the right consistency once it's well incorporated and you start to get it the dough hitting against the side of the bowl. It makes a thwack noise. So, I'm just going to let this keep on going. is coming together right here. You can see the consistency on it. It's turning into a nice solid dough right now. We have a little bit of leftover flour on the bottom of the bowl that didn't quite incorporate, but that's okay. I'm gonna stop this mixer right here. I'm gonna drop this down and I'm gonna feel the dough, check out the consistency on it. You know, it's still a little wet. So if you're experiencing that, that could be that your eggs were just a little bit too big in there. We have a little bit of extra flour here. Just add a little sprinkle in there. Lift that back up again and let that go. Now as that's going over there, I'm gonna wash my hands real fast. Sanitation is a huge thing in the kitchen, so make sure that in any activity where you're really touching anything that could have any type of raw products in it, you go about and wash your hands for an appropriate amount of time, making sure to clean well. Now that I'm done right there, I'm going to come back to our mixer and I'm going to give our dough another check. Yep, now it feels to be at that consistency that I'm going to want for my pierogis. I'll work it in my hands for just a second. I'm going to take some flour and spread it out on our table here. I'm going to take my dough, toss it right on my flour, and just work it out a little bit. Making sure everything's incorporated nicely. And making sure that the texture feels right. You know, you don't want to have a sticky dough, but you also don't want to have a solid brick in there. So this dough is feeling just about perfect right now. I'm going to put a little bit more flour down on the table. And we're going to take this and chop it in half. We're only going to work with half the dough for right now. A full batch will make you about 30 pierogis. And I'm not really looking for that amount for this video. So we're going to take this. We're going to throw some flour onto it. We're going to move it around. And once it starts to feel nice, I'm going to grab my rolling pin. And I'm just going to start rolling it out, getting it to a shape where I can cut out my actual pierogi discs for my dough. So it looks as if the dough is just about that size where I need it to be. We want it to be about 1/8 of an inch thick all the way across. So I'm going to start using my cutter here and cutting out our little disc shapes that we are going to be using for our pierogis themselves. All right, now I just go around and kind of eyeball out a little pattern. I try not to waste too much dough because you don't want to roll it out too many times. Your dough will start to change textures and get a little rough, which it's okay and it happens, but it's not something that you want to be a regular occurrence. So after we cut out all of our shapes, we're going to come through here and grab all this extra dough out of the way. And I'm just going to take it and discard it over here. Now I'm going to grab my baking sheet. And I'm going to move everything over to here for right now so that I can use this station to show you guys how we are going to be making the pierogi dough filling, the potato. Now to make our filling, I have a 1/4 cup of sour cream, cup of mild cheddar cheese. I shred it. I have 1 tablespoon of softened butter, and then I have salt and pepper to taste. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna grab my handy dandy hand mixer. I'm gonna pop this right in, and I'm gonna get breaking them down and making them into potatoes. All right, and once you see that consistency that you like, it should be creamy. You don't want them overly smooth since you're trying to stick them into a dough. You want them to be able to hold up a little bit. I'm going to bring my baking sheet right back over here. And pull out another spoon. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these little pieces of dough right here. We're going to get a nice spoonful of our filling. And then we're going to slowly pinch it over. You're going to work, if you have any extra that's coming out, work it all the way down to the sides. And you should be able to continuously pinch and go and seal it off. And if you have any filling that's coming out, just pull it right off to the side. Now we're going to take these, and I like to do a little bit of a crimp method. Some people do a little wave fold. It's really just what you grew up with, but I grew up with the crimp and seal method on it. And there you have it. There's an uncooked potato and cheese stuffed pierogi. Now I'm going to get about 6 of these ready, and then I'm going to show you how we cook them. Make sure that you try your potato mix before you just start putting it into the pierogis themselves. I have a recipe that I go off of, and it's pretty tried and true, but a lot of people like to adapt their own flavor to the potato itself, and they'll come across with problems where it just doesn't, they get the pierogis and they just don't taste quite right, and you can't do anything after you put it inside the pierogi shell. So make sure that you give it a try beforehand. Make sure it's how you like it, the flavor on it, the creaminess, the texture. All right, now we have about 6 pierogis here, nice and stuffed. We're gonna come over here. I have a pot of boiling water over here on the back of the stove. It's been salted. I'm going to take these pierogis and I'm going to gently lay them in the water. And we are going to let them cook up. What's going to happen is the dough is going to start to get slightly translucent, and they'll start to float, and that's when you know that the dough is cooked through and that they are ready to go. So we're going to check these pierogis. We're going to move them around a little bit. We're just waiting for them to float, and that's when we know that the dough is cooked through. Now that the pierogis are floating, and you can see that the dough has absorbed some water, they're looking just to be right to me. We take them, and I have a little bit of melted butter right here. We stick them right into a container with a little bit of melted butter, and we package them up for later on. You can put them in the freezer. They'll stay good for up to 3 months, or you can put them in your fridge and cook them up the next day. We like to pan fry them with a little bit of onion and some bacon. It turns out really, really nice. And that is how you make homemade pierogis. I hope you enjoyed this video.